this episode of 9-Hole Reviews, we look at the FN SCAR-17S, or SCAR Heavy. We also hear from a US Army Special Forces commander and his thoughts on running operations with this rifle. And Small Arms Development Specialist Chris Bartocci from Small Arms Solution talks about general issues that the SCAR-17 platform runs into in a parking lot. Now let's get on with it. SCAR stands for Soft Combat Assault Rifle, or Special Operations Forces Combat Assault Rifle. Yes indeed, it's an acronym within an acronym for a rifle that was developed at the Special Operations Command's request to develop a new family of rifles. The SCAR is one of FN's flagship products. It is a short-stroke gas piston operated rifle system that was designed with portability and ruggedness in mind. The variants span from personal defense weapons, assault, counter-sniper and designated marksman rifles. The SCAR is also chambered in 5.56 NATO and 7.62 NATO. The SCAR Heavy was specifically designed to replace the M14, M21 and M110 weapon systems. Almost universally, the initial shock value of picking up the SCAR Heavy is a lack of weight. At 7.9 pounds with nothing on, the SCAR Heavy is almost the same weight as a loaded M16A2, but fires a full-sized 7.62 NATO cartridge. The SCAR retains the M16 styled pistol grip, magazine release, bolt hold open, and yet the folding stock is adjustable for comb height and the length of pull. The rifle comes standard with an adjustable gas block to accommodate increased back pressure from suppressor use. This particular rifle has a Geissele trigger installed, as the original trigger is said to be very plain. A Kinetic Development Group rail had also been added to the front, eliminating the original Picatinny rails and further slimming down the rifle's grip. Gas block mounted front sights flip out of the way, but perhaps the most controversial part of the rifle is the reciprocating charging handle. We'll let the SF operator explain that later on in this clip. Since it was designed to replace some pretty significant designated marksman rifles in the arsenal, we were naturally most curious about its accuracy. Topped with a Trijicon AccuPoint 1-6x scope, it was easy to clock the rifle's potential. We ran two types of ammunition through the rifle. First, it was a Federal Gold Medal Match 175 grain, a standard staple for long-range applications. At 100 yards, the Gold Medal Match clocked a .952 9-hole group, a very respectable grouping for a semi-automatic rifle. Subsequently, when we tried some Israeli 168 grain match ammunition optimized for semi-automatic, we were sorely disappointed. The IMI delivered a 9-hole group at the same distance at a very disappointing 2.245 inches. That's barely over 2 MOA. For close handling, the rifle performed very well. Despite the full power cartridge running through the lightweight rifle, it was very easy to shoot. This was partially due to the primary weapon system's muzzle brake, and later swapped out for a Surefire SOCOM muzzle brake. I should add that the concussion from those two muzzle brakes gave a very uncivilized experience to whomever was shooting or observing right next to the rifle. However, with a Surefire wooden attachment on the end, it does help mitigate a significant amount of concussion. Despite the positives, there are issues. One very unlucky coincidence was that the SCAR-17's receiver design was able to hit harmonics that has earned its reputation of a scope killer.
With them in the beginning days, they had a lot of problems with the optics because of basically the tuning fork action of the upper receiver. What it's doing is not just destroying the optics inside of it, but also any electronics. Like if you were to have night vision in there, that vibration would destroy the electronics in there as well. It's any kind of laser probably be okay, but any kind of thermal, any kind of night vision, any kind of true optic. Like for instance, I have on mine, I have an Elcan Spectre, which Elcan says that they consider they're SCAR rated. The SCAR won't destroy it. But most optics, you can get as few as 100 rounds or as more as a few thousand rounds. Mm-hmm. It depends on any individual optic, and that was the thing that the guys at Crane noticed. One of the mounting guys tried to come up with a solution with the shock absorbers on it to try to prevent that from being a problem.
And did it work?
It did, but they never adopted it. It was too expensive.
I see.
So we recommend purchasing mounts that are specifically SCAR rated in quality optics. So on that note, we turn to someone with much more field experience and ask for his thoughts on the SCAR 17, and to US Army Special Forces Major Weston Amaya.
I was a team leader in the U.S. Army Special Forces Green Berets, detachment commander for an ODA, or Operational Detachment Alpha. For me personally, it's an awesome weapon. As far as reliability and durability and functionality go, it's, to me, the gold standard. For most guys in SF, I think they've come around to it. It's kind of been a slow progression. Initially, it was met with a lot of resistance, just like any change to any organization. And I would say it was probably 50-50 off the bat. There is a very specific tactical employment for the SCAR. It can, in my opinion, take the place of the 110, be subbed out for a belt-fed system. If it's a quick target, you just need some 7.62 punching power to punch through walls, to reach out and touch somebody beyond what the effective range of a 5.56 is. The SCAR is able to do that very well. That being said, there are some specific drawbacks. I mean, obviously, the loadout for an assaulter is much heavier with the SCAR. You have a 7.62 loadout versus a 5.56 loadout, so it's a trade-off between terminal ballistics versus kit weight. It's considerably heavier, and you're not able to bring as many rounds to the fight. However, it's still a huge advantage when you compare it to a 248 or 240 Bravo. One of the downsides of this rifle, in my opinion, is actually the charging handle that moves as you shoot. This is obviously by design. It's very functional. You can charge it with 2 fingers, you can charge it with no hand, you can charge it against a wall if you have to, but the way that it moves as you fire is actually a liability because it can get impinged on a lot of things. A lot of times when you find yourself in a firefight, you take cover behind whatever you can, and sometimes it's an awkward position or it is very small cover, and you find yourself manipulating your rifle into a position that is less than ideal to fire from. Basically any part of the rifle could be touching the ground, touching a wall. Anything that's moving on the outside of the rifle is likely to get impinged at the worst possible moment. It's the first time I've seen this rail system on the SCAR Heavy. It's very functional. It feels a bit lighter. It ran very well. Like something on this, on our SCAR Heavy on the team for sure. The thing I personally wouldn't do on this weapon is the pressure switch on the tack light. I'm not a believer in pressure switches at all, especially having one right on the grip. To me is a liability. If you're talking about a shooting match and you nick it on something or get a little fidgety and the white light goes off because it's right under your thumb, no big deal at a shooting match. However, in a tactical environment, it's not ideal because you want to be very deliberate with your white light. White light AD in a dark room puts you at risk, your team at risk, you silhouette yourself, give away your position. The other thing I don't necessarily like about this setup is having the weapon light on the outside of the rifle. I basically like to have the outside of my rifle as slick as possible, fewer things to get hung up on when you're coming through narrow doorways or coming out of a vehicle or anything like that where the space is confined. For me personally, I would have mounted the light on the shooting side, on the left side of this because I'm right-handed, and no pressure switch, just a regular end cap where I could manipulate that with my thumb. There's guys out there on message boards and blogs that claim a specific weapon system is cloned to the exact setup of a special operations unit. In SF we have a saying, if it's stupid but it works, it's not stupid. So no matter what someone may argue about someone's setup of their kit or their weapon system, if they've trained with it and that's what they're comfortable with and that's how they shoot well, then it works for them. And no matter how stupid you think it looks or how not cloned to specifications of what you assume is what an SF guy or a Delta Force guy or a Navy SEAL uses, it's not stupid if it works for them. To say that you could clone a special forces guy's individual weapon system is like saying that you cloned a Green Beret's beard. Everyone's is different, and everyone kind of uses what works for them. Many team guys will buy their own foregrips, their own butt stocks, their own pistol grips, their own optics even sometimes, based on what they're used to shooting and what they've found works for them. Overall, I'd say great weapon system to have in the right conditions.
Later, after the cameras were switched off, we asked Major Amaya if he would ever purchase a Scar Heavy for his personal use. The good Major simply responded, "Yeah, if you give me $3 grand." And there you have it, a rugged, accurate, yet nimble rifle that was designed with specific purposes in mind. The Scar 17 is a phenomenal rifle indeed, but perhaps with an even more phenomenal $3,400 MSRP buy-in. Thanks again for tuning in to another 9-hole review video. I'd like to also extend our gratitude to Clear Advantage TV for letting us borrow their rifle. We've enjoyed testing the FN Scar and we really look forward to shooting some more. Until then, we'll see you on the range.